Today, we're talking all about the brand new Longines Conquest Chrono. We're discussing everything you need to know about the new colors, the new variations of this model, as well as why I believe this is the perfect Rolex Daytona affordable alternative. Welcome back to the Chisholm Hunter channel. My name is Harrison, as always, and today I have a box. It's a good day when I have a box. Boxes normally are filled with sexy watches that we can talk about for a while. If you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, please do me a huge favor before we start and hit that subscribe button. So I feel like I'm not quite out of bed with the Longines Conquest 38mm, and they've just released this banger, or these bangers. Now they come in a couple of different colors, a variety of different colors. You have the champagne dial with black subdials. You then have the black dial with silver subdials. Then you have a silver dial with blue subdials. Then you have a blue dial with blue subdials. Then the one that I have literally in front of me at the moment is the silver dial with green subdials. And finally, but probably most importantly, because this is, in my opinion, one of the sexiest models, you have a silver dial with black subdials with red splashes of color in there. This is, Longines had an absolutely incredible year last year, and I feel like what they're going to do this year is expand upon their previous success with the Longines Conquest, with the Longines Conquest Chrono, with the Longines Hydra Conquest GMT, and that's what they're doing here with this Chrono model. These models all come in at 42mm in diameter, so they are a little bit more chunky, and actually they're a lot more chunky than you think because of the thickness. The thickness comes in at 14.30, so these models do sit a little bit higher off the wrist. They're not as slender as the Conquest model coming in at 38mm, or even the 41mm variant. They are a little bit more of a chunky monkey for bigger wrists. The lug-to-lug comes in at 50.20 with this model, so it is exactly the same as the previous iterations that they've released last year. It's purely cosmetic, it's purely color changes. It's like the outer coat of paint on a car. The case and the bracelet on this model comes in stainless steel, and it's a pretty hefty model. You can actually feel the weight of it while it's in your hands. It's definitely not for the faint-hearted. It comes in at 168.9 grams. The bracelet on this watch has a combination of polished and brushed metal. It has two brushed links going down the outside, and the center link is in this beautiful polished metal. Now, the positives of polished, it reflects wonderfully in the light. It's a bright, airy metal. However, it does scratch a lot easier, or show scratches at least a lot easier than brushed. So this is, to me, that little bit more of a dressy model rather than the sports. The bracelet has a pretty aggressive taper on it. It actually goes very slim at the bottom, perhaps that little bit too slim for me, and it has a butterfly clasp at the bottom just here. Now, this butterfly clasp is pretty damn sexy, and the Longines logo is on the outside of that butterfly clasp in a polished metal link that's placed on that butterfly clasp. Now, there's good things about that, and there's also perceived negatives about that. If you have a polished link at the bottom of your watch, the first thing to scratch when you drag your arm across a table is that link. So I've always been of the opinion that the bottom link on a watch, or the bottom links, or even the clasp, should always be in brushed rather than polished. This is a personal preference. It's not, the mainstream way of thinking, but that's just my opinion. The outer lugs of this watch do have that beautiful polished metal on the outside, and on the right-hand side, you of course have two pushers, one at the top, one at the bottom, and then the screw-down crown at the 3 o'clock mark. The screw-down crown gives this watch a water resistance of 100 meters. The glass on this watch is sapphire crystal glass, which is ultra durable and kind of what we expect to see in the industry nowadays. And that sapphire crystal glass has anti-reflective coating on the top and the bottom. So that's important. It's on both sides of this watch. And that can be perceived as a negative to a lot of people because anti-reflective coating will scratch that little bit easier than the sapphire crystal underneath it. But, and I've told this story so many times, so sorry if you've heard this before, but I have an Omega Seamaster. I've had it for 4 years-ish. And I've not got one scratch on it. And on that note, it's probably time for the wrist check. What is on your wrist today? Currently, I'm wearing the Hamilton Khaki Field Expedition. This is the white dial Expedition. There's actually a Hamilton box over to my left. I want to show you this. Actually, I can't show you this. This is embargoed. I'm not allowed to show anyone this, actually. Oops. This is embargoed. I'm going to be filming with them real soon. So if you want to see something really cool from Hamilton that's coming out, make sure you hit that bell. The bezel of this watch, of course, is in ceramic. Now, that ceramic coincides with the subdials and inner disc on the dial just beautifully. The color that they've used here is this extremely dark, almost forest green. I honestly have a pet peeve for watches in the industry that go down the vibrant route. Vibrant greens or, just too much. This is totally understated, but totally beautiful. It's so striking in the right lights. And actually, in certain lights, it looks almost black. The dial on this watch is in matte silver. Now that matte silver contrasts and coincides wonderfully with that dark forest green. Now on the subdials, you can actually see a sunray pattern flaring through those subdials, and that pops them out so much more from the actual silver dial. Now, adding a layer of depth to that and going even further, you have an outer disc around the outsides of this watch, and that outer disc is in green. Now that green outer disc, I keep saying that, but outer disc has sunray on it as well. So depending on how you look at this at the light, it's almost like a circle that kind of keep bouncing around the watch. It's really nice. The green subdials don't lose any visibility because of that light flare coming through. They remain very easy to read, which is a positive. Because sometimes if brands go down the vibrant color route, they can lose some of that readability. This hasn't lost that. It has to be said, guys, the colors that you see on this watch are not the same as they are online. You really need to get this on in person. You really need to get it on the wrist. Online, the colors are a lot more punchy. They're a lot more vibrant. But in person, they're a lot more muted. They're a lot more darkened. And that, to me, is very, very attractive. That's what I like. It was kind of similar to the Omega Seamaster Seaweed, the green dial Omega Seamaster. Online, the renders are really quite vibrant green, whereas in person, they're like a dark forest, some would say seaweed green. And that's kind of what everyone loved about that Seamaster. I just feel like the luxury watch industry's imagery is not up to where it should be. And that's why you have me videoing these watches, obsessing over these watches. Anyway, let's move on. I suppose now is probably as good a time as any. Remember that Chisholm Hunter are official stockists of Longines watches, and if you want your next watch, whether that's a Longines, Tudor, Omega, whatever it might be, head to chisholmhunter.co.uk. And if you get your watch from us, you're supporting the channel, and I'd appreciate that. Now, at the 3 o'clock mark, you have the 60-second subdial. At the 6 o'clock mark, you have the 12-hour subdial. And at the 9 o'clock mark, you have the 30-minute subdial. When you flip this watch round, it reveals an open caseback. And this open caseback reveals the movement. So let's talk about that for a second. The movement on this watch is the caliber L898. This, of course, is a self-winding mechanical movement, and it beats at a frequency of 28,800 VPH. It also has around about 59 hours of power, which is kind of a strange one. Typically, brands have about 48 hours of power, and then they go a step up, maybe have 80 hours of power. Very rarely do you see 59 hours of power. So, this model comes in at £3,650. That ain't cheap. This is an expensive watch. It's a very considered purchase. It should be taken as a considered purchase. But let's just review our options at the moment. We've got the Zenith Chronomaster Sport. We've got the Omega Speedmaster and probably the Rolex Daytona. That's the three big ones that you'll be looking at. The Rolex Daytona, if you can get it new, comes in at £13,200. I'd rather spend £3,000 if I'm totally honest. Plus, you get an absolute quality product. Remember that the same company that own Omega own Longines. Swatch Group is huge, and they learn from their mistakes. They learn from what they do wrong, and you can definitely see this in the new Longines releases that have come through. I mean, the upgrades that they had, especially on the Longines Hydra Conquest GMT, the bracelet, the face, it's just absolutely unbelievable. So I do believe that this is the affordable chrono model that you should probably go for. Longines just sits in a beautiful place in the market. I'm a huge fan of Longines. I'm seriously in bed with Longines at the moment. I've gone through kind of a Omega phase. Then I went for a Certina phase. Then I went for a Tissot phase. Then I went for a Hamilton phase. Now it's the start of my Longines phase. And on that note, thank you guys so much for watching. If you have enjoyed, please hit that subscribe button or follow us on Instagram at Chisholm Hunter Watches or my Instagram at HP Lifelines or our podcast at Into the Mind or just the Into the Mind podcast. And I'll see you soon.